Today, I'll be showing you how I've built my DJI Ronin RS2 gimbal for commercial video shoots. I'll also be explaining why I have each of the parts that I do on here, as well as some pros and cons of each thing. It's pretty crazy to think that the RS2 came out almost 4.5 years ago now, but every accessory here still fits all of the newer DJI Ronin gimbals as well. So this includes the DJI RS3, RS3 Pro, RS4, and the RS4 Pro. The only one it doesn't seem to fit is the original Ronin S and the Ronin SC gimbal. The rig I have here is quite a bit heavier than standard gimbal setup, but with the original setup, I find that you have to film with your elbows tucked in like this, and it's just not very comfy if you're doing it for a long period of time during your video shoot. Whereas, with this, you have the two handles that come out here to pretty much shoulder width apart, and what that does is allow you to distribute the weight of this rig evenly across your chest, your shoulders, and your arms. So even though it's quite a bit heavier, I personally find that shooting for long periods of time with my setup is still pretty comfortable and bearable, even if I'm going for, say, 12 hours on end. I also have a briefcase handle on the back here because I like the fact that I can kind of get the low down angles like this without having to bend my whole body downwards. And because you have the dual handle that sticks out here, you can either use this as a second point of contact, or you can use the original tripod legs as a second point of contact. And if you find that the tripod legs can't get in the way here, all you have to do is just take it off with a quick release. This can go in my pocket over here, and then you're good to go filming without anything in the way. So whether that's shots close to your body like this, or shots close to the floor or table like this, you're good to go. And then when you're done filming, you just take this, pop it back on here, and you can set your gimbal down. Another benefit to having this briefcase handle over here is that I can mount my monitor closer to eye level. So before, I used to have a monitor down here, but I find that I'd always be arching my back, trying to look at the monitor. And now with the closer to eye level, I don't have to stress my neck as much anymore, and my camera factor is pretty happy about it. So on here, I have the Atomos Ninja Ultra, and that usually takes a Sony MPF battery like this, but these are pretty chunky and they're kind of heavy. So what I have instead is an adapter over here that adapts the Sony MPF over to DTAP. And I also have a little power plug over here that gives a DTAP power through the original gimbal's battery. And because I'll shoot a lot of things from corporate video shoots to commercials to social reels for clients, I also have the Neewer vertical mount here that lets you go from landscape over to portrait, just like that. And while it's not quite perfect, it's still pretty close to being balanced after you change it. So it's just usually a few minor adjustments away and you're good to go. Now that we've gone over everything, let's break it down. As I mentioned before, the gimbal I'm currently using is the DJI Ronin RS2. Now, at the time of filming this gimbal has been out for about 4.5 years now, but I still haven't really found the need to upgrade this yet because it does pretty much everything I need it to do, which is just stabilize my camera when I'm filming. On here, I do have the Neewer vertical mount, and that just basically replaces the plate that goes onto this axis here. Now there's a couple of pros and cons about this. The pro obviously is that you can go from landscape like this, straight over to vertical like that. On the bottom here, there's a little lock, so when you're in either landscape or portrait mode, it does allow you to lock it into place so it doesn't move. When you lock it in place, it's pretty sturdy. I don't notice any camera shake on this when I'm moving it, but I do have one gripe with this, is when you lock it into landscape mode like this thing here still moves from time to time. And I notice in a lot of shots, if I don't have this perfectly lined up, it ends up being exactly about 1 degree off axis. So what I have to do then is go into post, zoom in a little bit, and then rotate it that 1 degree. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely annoying and definitely something to note. Now the main part of this entire setup lies pretty much in these 4 pieces right here. This is the Tilta dual handle system for basically all of the Ronin RS gimbal systems. As you can see here, with the original Ronin battery, we have these connectors here, which is exactly mimicked by the Tilta system over here. So what that allows you to do is instead of plugging your battery straight into the gimbal, you plug the Tilta dual handle straight into here. And that basically gets rid of this height over here that you would otherwise have. So that goes into here, locks into place, nice and sturdy. Next, you have the extension arm. So the extension arm here has a little safety lock, and that basically goes into this little hole here to prevent it from sliding out. Slide it in like that, and then you just turn this knob. And like with everything else, I love these kind of pull out levers here because you can adjust the bolts and tighten them. And then once you're done, if it's off axis like this, we can just lift it up, put it back on axis so it doesn't get in your way. Now that you have these two pieces on there, we can put the original Ronin battery in here, little knob here that we tighten. Nice and secure. And then you have the Tilta grip over here. So this grip kind of mimics the height of the battery, but not fully. And it does also have a pin over here that slips into here, so it doesn't slip around when you have it on. So that just spins on like this, and you're good to go. And lastly, I do have the original tripod legs over here that came with the gimbal, and I have a little Ulanzi quick release over here. Now, this quick release will be linked in the description, but you can pretty much use any quick release you want. I personally like this because it has a little lock button here, so when you lock it, it won't come off accidentally. But there's a lot of times where I don't lock it, and it's perfectly fine. Another reason why I like this is because you can just push it in, and it's locked in. To take it out, you have one button over here. You also have the same button over here. You just hold both of them at the same time, and it comes off just like that. Again, I like the fact that I don't have to use two hands to really do it, except for the hand holding the gimbal. I've had other quick releases that I've tried to use before, but those usually have a little collar, and it's just impossible to be able to push the collar down with one hand while holding the gimbal. And this is basically the majority of it. Right now I just have the Tilta dual handle here. I have the Neewer vertical mount up here. You have the original tripod legs and the Ulanzi quick release. The one thing that I didn't quite mention yet is this battery plate. So this battery plate is also made by Tilta, and it's made specifically for this dual handle mount. On this arm over here, there's pins that take power from the original gimbal battery. And this battery plate by Tilta attaches to those pins and also draws power from this gimbal battery. And what that does is give you a D-tap over here and a 5-volt USB out over here. On the top, that gives you two cold shoe mounts as well as a variety of different holes here. Now Tilta kind of advertises this as something that you can put your monitor onto. But kind of put your monitor here. One, it kind of gets in the way of the gimbal sometimes. And two, it's pretty low. So you want your monitor closer to eye level so you don't really have to hunch over to see it. And that is where the Smallrig briefcase handle comes in. So I know that the original Ronin RS2 and probably the RS3 and RS4 all come with briefcase handles, but for this one in particular, it just came with this part without the actual handle. And what they wanted you to do was put this on, and anytime you wanted to use the briefcase, you would have to unscrew the tripod legs and use that as the handle. Now I hate making things complicated, so I just bought an entirely new handle, and I found that the Smallrig one is quite a bit comfier than the Neewer one. And the great thing about these briefcase handles is there is a little safety tab over here. So when you have it mounted like this, your gimbal weight rests on that, and it's just a little bit added peace of mind here. I'll swivel this out of the way so you can see a bit better. But this just basically slides on like that, and then you just screw it on tight. And over here, I have a little Neewer adjustable monitor mount, and this goes up here directly onto my briefcase handle. And I like this a lot more than the cold shoe mounts for monitors because the cold shoe tends to get loose whenever you mount it anywhere. And just the way that these ones are designed, it screws in this little locking pin over here to make sure it doesn't move, and it's just a lot more secure that way. So like I said before, I do have the Atomos Ninja Ultra monitor, and on top of this I have a Nitze cage just to kind of protect it a little bit, but also because it gives me a lot of mounting options here. So whether I want to mount it for landscape or for vertical, I can do that with this cage. On the back here, the Ninja Ultra comes with this adapter that ends up changing the battery from NPF over to USB-C. But because the power plate here doesn't support USB-C, I ended up buying a D-Tap cable here. Attached to this, I also have an 8K 2.1 HDMI cable, and this one's from Alvin cables. And for the gimbal especially, I find that it's super useful to have something as thin as this, so it doesn't put any pressure when your camera's stretching and then moving around on the gimbal when your monitor is stationary. So that just screws in on top here like this. And the good thing about this mount is that there's a little knob for adjustment over here, and this adjusts the tension of the tilt. But the better thing about it is that once the tension is adjusted, you can have it perfectly, so you can tilt your monitor without having to ever touch this knob again. And whichever position you lock it in, it'll stay in place. So this D-Tap goes right into here, and as you can see, the monitor is powered. And then finally here we have the camera. So I'm using the Canon R5C for all my video projects now, and I just love the quality that comes out of this camera. On it here, I have a Smallrig half cage. Because I'm a hybrid shooter, I also do shoot photos, which is the main reason why I still have this wrist strap on here. And when I shoot photos, I don't want to be holding a grip that has a cage on it. I want to just be holding the grip. But as some of you guys know, this camera is plagued with a micro HDMI port, and I've broken a couple of these cables. So the main reason I got this cage was basically just for this thing over here that protects the head of the cable after I plug it in. Because there happened a few times where I had the Canon R5, I plugged the cable in here without a cage, and that just kept getting knocked loose. And while I'm not too worried about replacing these $20, $30, $40 cables, I am a little bit worried about the port breaking inside the camera. And then on the bottom here, I just have the typical plate that the Ronin comes with. So I'll put this back to landscape mode, lock that in place, and then this just slides in here like that. And that's it. If you guys have any questions about any of the parts that I used that didn't go over in the video, please let me know in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. If gimbal rigs aren't really your thing, and you're looking for more of a handheld rig, and I'm making a video about that, and once it's live, I'll be linked right over here. If you found value in this video, I'd really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed to the channel. If you didn't like the video for whatever reason, just let me know why down in the comments below. And that's it. Thanks for watching, everyone.